Okay. Um, Cham, we cannot hear you. Cham, yeah, I see you are ready. Yeah, go ahead, please. Okay.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Good evening once more. Cham, nice to have you. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Vance, for this opportunity. My sincere apologies for the wait. I had a mix up with the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Vance, do I go ahead and share my screen now? Or what?
Right. Just share your screen and then yeah, please. If there are any issues, let me know. If you are not able to share.
Okay, bear with me. Somebody's hand is raised.
Yeah, that's yeah,
Titus.
Titus. Yeah, we'll take questions again at the end. Yeah, if you Titus, maybe that was from the last question. So yeah, I can go ahead. Just go ahead and share, Cham, if you can. Then just the procedure we'll have today, just to give everyone heads up. So last week you remember that we had a conversation, was kind of a conversation talking to Shay Timothy Jobe. Today it will be different, and then we can always see which one is suit. So Cham will basically just kind of give a presentation on his journey to the cloud. That should last maximum 20 minutes. We all understand that attention span is always a problem. So we'll just go through 20 minutes of that presentation. And then after that, we'll take questions and answers in regards to his journey, right? And then we'll then have, if Cham have more to dive into in that journey, then he will also bring that in. And then we'll just continue having a conversation. So by 9:30, so let's just say we were planning for 1 hour. We have a slight delay. So let's just say in the next 1 hour, we should be through in that. And it just depends how far some of you are willing to stay. But by 10 p.m., our session will close. But we'll see how to adapt due to this delay. So I would just then like to welcome everyone again and thank especially Cham for taking this opportunity to come and inspire those who are also looking for ways to grow in this journey. So Cham, you can go ahead, please. Thank you.
All right. Good evening again, everybody, and welcome. My name is Cham. As you can see on the board, my surname is Zekebweliwai. Don't try to pronounce it. If you have a soft tongue, you might cut your tongue. So today, what we're going to be looking at basically for signposting purposes, I'll talk about a little bit about myself. Please indicate if you can't hear me. And then I'll talk about how I got to join WirfonCloud. I'll also talk about the studies at WirfonCloud and the community, other learning resources, my applications for jobs, my interviews, my current job, and then advice to others. Obviously, at the end of the day, we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers. And if we have time, we can go into a sample scenario. So for many of you might have heard that sometimes interviews are multi-staged. So you have up to 2, 3, 4 interviews. And in some cases, they give you a scenario-based question so that you do some sort of an architecting of that scenario, and it's part of your interview process. So if at the time we get to that, our brains are ready for that, okay, we can dive into it. But if not, we'll keep it for another day. Yeah, so basically, I'll start with my academic background. I have a BSc in accounting from the University of Buea. I have a master's degree in food supply economics. Some people may say there is a disconnect there, but when I left the university, I started an NGO called Action for Food in Cameroon, where we used to help local farmers with knowledge on post-harvest loss management and things like that. So based on my activities in my organization, I got a World Bank scholarship to study a master's in food supply economics at the African Center of Excellence, Center for Food Technology and Research. So after that, again, and based on the progress that we made, I got another scholarship to study a master's degree in agriculture and development in the UK. And then I also have a cloud master's certificate. It's not a degree, but we'll talk about that. Career-wise, after the university, I got a couple of gigs as finance officer, obviously with accounting as my background, but they were not very serious commitments. So my first committed gig was as a project coordinator for preventive violent extremism in northern Nigeria. I did that for almost 3 years. And then I moved to the UK, where I worked as a finance analyst for different organizations, for social care organizations, and then for Panasonic, which is a manufacturing company, IT, technology products, things like televisions and fridges and stuff like that. And then for other housing, social housing companies and stuff like that. My last role before getting my current job was I was a team lead with the UK Health Security Agency. I was an ITCT team lead. So ITCT sounds like it's IT. It has a little bit of IT, but it simply means International Travel Contact Tracing. So I led a team of 12 people, made up of data analysts, contact tracers, and call handlers. And our job was to create situations, or how they call them, or when you test positive for COVID, that's the simplest way I can say it. When you test positive, we create a file, a portfolio for you in the UK health system. And based on that portfolio and other information that we get from NHS and from CITAS and from Home Office, we are able to trace people you have come in contact with and inform them to isolate, and then also give feedback to the government and to other agencies to update the COVID status. And then obviously my current role is a senior infrastructure engineer. In terms of certifications, I've done a lot of things in my life right up to now, but I'm focusing on things that are relevant to what we are talking about. So in terms of certification, I've got the AWS Cloud Practitioner certification. I've got the AWS Solutions Architect Associate certification, and I'm currently studying for my AWS Solutions Architect Professional certification. And lastly, in terms of tools, which I have learned along the way, along my journey, my cloud journey, for configuration management, I learned Linux, I learned Ansible. For infrastructure as code, I learned Terraform. So I haven't taken certifications in this, but in some of them, I've actually completed the certification programs. And I just didn't want to go through the stress of taking the certification because, you know, time and inspiration basically. But I've learned them, and they're tools that I had, even most of them before I got my role. So Terraform and AWS CDK. And then for DevOps tools, obviously Jenkins, GitHub, CodeBuild, a code pipeline. Those are AWS DevOps tools anyway. And then for automation, I started learning Python, but then I left it and I dived straight to JavaScript and TypeScript. The difference between a scripting language and a programming languages begin from the start, like they build projects from scratch, while scripts just help to alter certain things in order to automate and in order to make changes at the level of infrastructure maintenance. And then for cloud monitoring tools, probably the first one which I learned, which is not here, is going to be AWS CloudWatch, which I've not listed here. However, outside of CloudWatch, there are third-party cloud monitoring tools, such as Grafana, Prometheus, Dynatrace, and Datadog, which I am currently learning as well. For the cloud monitoring tools, I started learning them after I got my role. So, but the only monitoring tool that I knew before then was AWS CloudWatch. Yeah, so that's it about a brief background to who I am. Now, this was important so that you can understand, especially for many people who have the feeling that they don't have an IT background. As you can see, I really don't have an IT background when speaking in terms of academics. So I've only picked things up along the line, like many of us might be at the level of picking our first certifications or trainings up in WirfonCloud. So joining WirfonCloud, the first thing I think was my motivation that drew me closer was that I was at the point in my life where I had made the decision to upskill. You know, I was working as a finance analyst, but it's not really something I enjoy. Plus, I'm just one of those kind of people who is always hungry for capacity development. When I stay too much on one spot, I have the urge to try to upgrade myself and become better. And so I was at that point in my life where I was like, I'm tired of where I am. I want to really get into something that piques my brain and something that pays me better. Never forget the pay me better part, because every time I got discouraged along the line, I checked those salaries and it was enough to motivate me to keep learning. So the first challenge I had when I made up my mind was the fear of a lack of an IT background, which I'm very sure a lot of us share. I didn't have an IT background. I didn't know where to start. If you have considered cloud computing very much, you understand that cloud computing is not just IT. It is IT for IT. Therefore, for example, people like tech maintenance, people who give you a laptop, people who give you platforms to work on, maybe be it Outlook, be it Zoom, which we are working on now. If you had a problem with your Zoom, you probably talk to to Banjika right now. However, Banjika will talk to the person hosting the product, and which will probably, if the product is being hosted on the cloud, it will be the cloud person. So you're not just the IT for the immediate user, you are the IT for IT people. So you have little or no contact with customers who are coming in to buy, for example, pens or cars or things like that, yet you're supporting systems. So if you look at IT, it's a very broad space. So again, I had to consider what is the best path for me, what is the best route. Do I enroll as a data analyst? Do I train as a data analyst? Do I train as an agile project manager? Do I what do I do? Do I train as a cloud expert? Do I train as a software developer? what do I train as? Those were the questions that I was having. And at the beginning of this, I heard somebody, Nicolene, I think it was, asking, can I try it and see if it is something that is for me? That is exactly the same space where my brain was at the time. So when I decided to get into IT, the first thing I did was a project management and agile business analysis course for about 4 months, and then 3 months, and then 3 months of internship. But I ended up doing 2 months because I finished not internship, but work on a real life project. The real life project didn't really meet my expectations. So I didn't go ahead with it. But yeah, I finished what I was asked to do, and I wasn't really satisfied with it. Having an accounting background, I decided to train in Microsoft Dynamics 365 as a finance and operations functional consultant. So I also trained as a D365 functional consultant. But again, I trained with an institution that was officially recognized and all that. And all they did was the brief training, a lot of money, no support outside of it. And that was it. I wasn't able to make it. I wrote the MB 300. I was already annoyed before I took it. So I even wrote it and I didn't make it. And that was it about that program. I was asked to come back and retrain and take it for free because that's the policy. You have 2 chances, but I never ever went back to it because it just wasn't something that I felt was for me. And then at the time I was speaking to a lot of people, and this is where the idea of networking, as you see this lady holding networking here, comes into play. Every time you're in a space where you think that it's time to expand, it's time to move to the next level, never fail to make good use of the human resources around you. It's true that we live in a society where some people, every time you share a good intention, people try to knock you down. However, keeping the faith and persisting helps a lot. Consistency helps a lot. So I was speaking to a lot of people about my urge, my desire to upskill and to live a more fulfilling, to engage in a more fulfilling role. So some people said, okay, why don't you go back to the base accounting where you had your BSc and where you've been working so far, and do ACCA. But then, because I'm very visionary as well in the way I think, I thought about it. I said, look, ACCA now, I went to ACCA, they accepted to take away 4 courses from the entire course. But again, that left me with about 10 courses again, 10 or 11 courses before I can call myself shattered. And if I'm a very good student and I don't fail any course, that would take me a minimum of 3 to 4 years while working. I didn't have that time, to upskill, to spend like that. So I was speaking to another chartered accountant in London who told me, look, I am a chartered accountant. I've been for the past 10 years and I'm leaving and I'm trying to do cloud. I'm like, what have you not achieved in your career? Like, you're in the NHS, you're in a very high director level, you're chartered. Why do you want to do cloud? And then he started telling me about the cloud space and the kind of wonderful ideas and things that are happening there. And so he spoke with me and he asked me to enroll in the Cloud Masters program with Edureka. That I did. And again, it was just one of those programs where you come and they give you things to study, tasks to copy, to complete, but there is no support. There is no support. And I'm somebody who believes so much in the human touch. And I completed the cloud program. But if you ask me what was I studying, I wouldn't be able to tell you or make sense out of what I had done. I just completed it as a box ticking exercise. It was for 6 months. I was doing all of this while working. So I was at that phase where I was like, okay, I've done all of this. I've tried my best, the frustration phase. You begin to have self-doubt, low self-esteem, confusion, and the temptation to give up. You know, it's almost like, okay, you're low and this is where you're going to be. And there is, it's, if you're somebody who likes to live an achieving or fulfilling life, this is the point where you break down. This is the point where depression and anxiety set in, you know. And so I was actively searching. But one thing that I had caught was the vision of cloud, the fact that it was an expanding space, and it was a space that was only going to multiply in the next couple of years. It wasn't going to shrink at all. So I said to myself, okay, this cloud is the way forward. Even though I didn't have support, I kind of liked how what I was doing with the box ticking and all that from Edureka, but I didn't have that support or that motivation from them. And so I kept on speaking to people and actively searching for people who are actually in the cloud field. And so I spoke to a lot of people. When I meet somebody and they say, I'm in IT, I would like to find out, what kind of IT are you doing? What kind of, and most of the time I met people who were in IT but had no idea about AWS and stuff. Until I finally met somebody who is an expert in cybersecurity. She's actually a leader in her field. And she told me about, she introduced me to Banjika. And if I was not talking to people, if I was not reaching out and trying to understand this, I probably wouldn't have come across her. I probably wouldn't have gotten introduced to Banjika at that point. But thank God I did. And I had a long conversation with Banjika about where I am now, where I want to see myself in the next 5 years, how I want to make what I already have in my portfolio relevant to my journey going forward. So it was not just a matter of carrying everything I had worked for in my life and dumping it away just to get into cloud, but it was a way, I was looking for a way to leverage my past experiences and in my journey moving forward. And so that is when I joined WirfonCloud as a community. So that was my process, and I believe there's a lot of you who are here who are at that frustration stage, or who are close to that frustration stage. I don't know what is driving you, but I'm very passionate. When I put my head to something and it's not working well, I get very upset, and that's where I was. And thank God I had the opportunity to talk with Banjika, get an understanding of what was going on in the cloud and in AWS in particular. Banjika is the one who opened my eyes to the potential of AWS, the fact that it holds the giant share of the cloud market, and the fact that careers in AWS were multiplying in an exorbitant rate. And it was really a great conversation, long conversation. And when I joined the community, it only helped to spur that passion, that motivation even more. So while as a member of WirfonCloud, these 4 things stood out to me. First of all, Saturday sessions. My first Saturday was I attended. There was a presentation from Lady N. That's New You. I think she had just landed a role. Was it? I keep forgetting. Deloitte. Yes, it was Deloitte. And she was a student. And looking at her, I mean, no disrespect, but looking at her, I was like, this is my junior, you know, very well. And I was really inspired by the things that she was saying. Something else struck me. In that session, Nuyu's mom was in attendance and she was doing cloud. And so, first of all, I got upset more with myself that what the hell, why was I even at the level of thinking of giving up? And then I also got inspired. So I don't know if you know that feeling, but you're upset and you're excited at the same time. But that's exactly what I was going through at the time. And I was like, wow, this is something to get serious with. And I kept on, I was attending the sessions. I kept hearing these stories, kept getting inspired. Sometimes this was the only motivation I needed, you know. And then came the Thursday early morning sessions. At first, I was just attending and learning, and it becomes boring. It's more like you just put on your laptop, you listen, you try things out, you know. But then the model changed. We started doing presentations ourselves. So we selected bands coordinated, we selected topics, and each person was assigned a topic to present. And this is when things got real, because you didn't just have to listen now, you had to actually learn enough to be able to teach others. And being somebody who hates being, I care a lot about my reputation and my and how the impression people have about me, especially when it comes to things like this. I had to take those teaching sessions very serious, and whether you like it or not, those are one of the best areas of AWS that I am capable at right now, because I took out that time to learn them in order to teach them in the Thursday sessions. So the Thursday teaching sessions, if you are given a topic, master it very well, that might just be your AWS specialty at the end of the day, you know, because you are learning it to teach others. And so take those ones very seriously. Another thing that was worked like magic for me in the WirfonCloud community was the updates, the frequent updates. Every time somebody came and said, I got up this morning, I took the course, the exams for this or that, or this or that, and I passed. And everybody comes and pours, wow, congratulations. I think the group is getting big and we're losing that human touch. But at the time, when one person had it, the whole group came out and everybody was, wow, congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. And if you felt like, when am I going to share mine? When am I going to share mine? And it becomes a motivation for you to study even harder. And then just because we're in a community, we're talking about the same thing and we have the same goal, doesn't mean that our journeys, our abilities are the same. Some people assimilate slower than others. Some people just take time to learn things more than others. But you have to take advantage of the community you are in. Some people are more proficient in certain things than others. It's your role to understand what you want to achieve, identify those people who are proficient in that thing, and then get closer to them beyond the general group. So one of the things I used to do is I reach out to Banjika in the background when I have problems, but that is a bit obvious because he's the leader. However, I also reached out to people like Nuyu every now and then. If Nuyu remembers very well, there was a time when I reached out to her just to say that I'm discouraged, you know, and she just said, no, don't worry, and this and that, and you just get it on, do like this, do like that, and things like that. And you know, that helps because beyond the huge group, you felt like you're actually creating a relationship with people in the group, a networking, a professional relationship outside of the hustle that can go on within the group, within the general forum. And so that is my experience of WirfonCloud, and that continues to be my experience of WirfonCloud. And I'm very grateful for it. I'm very happy that I came across this opportunity to join this community, because even though I had been, should I say, flirting around with the ideas of AWS, with the ideas of getting into the cloud, I didn't really have a full sense of the possibilities until I became part of WirfonCloud. I didn't really have a way forward until I became part of WirfonCloud. I didn't really begin to experience or enjoy the learning process until I became part of this. And if you don't enjoy the process, the learning process, then you're in the wrong business, because what I have noticed is that learning never ends in this field, and you must learn to enjoy what you're doing. And the only way you can enjoy it is if you identify people who are doing the same thing, and you people can talk about your difficulties in a way that creates fun, and share your challenges and help each other grow. Yeah, when it comes to other learning resources, obviously, WirfonCloud is not exactly a resource. It's a source. It's like a repository for resources, because what happens there is we come you every now and then you see people dropping links to resources. So it's like our own repository, our own meeting group, our own Ford, where we come and regroup and reload and then relaunch into our various learning paths. So LinkedIn served me very well. My first course on DevOps in AWS, I did it on LinkedIn. Now, I might have learned code build, code pipeline, code commit, and all those things when learning AWS, but nobody organized it in terms of its relevance in the DevOps cycle like that course did. So I was also very grateful for that. Google is your best friend. I'll share a little experience here, and it might be very funny. One of the most intelligent people I know, I've met, who is my manager. He's a very smart person. There is nothing about IT you bring to him and he doesn't have a solution to. He speaks, he's like a walking encyclopedia. But I remember one of the first days I went to the office and I met him and we were talking. And it so happened I was talking about one networking, cloud agnostic networking platform that Barnes introduced to us when we were learning AWS at the time. And he didn't have an idea about it. And immediately he opened his Google and he was looking at it. So though he told me he didn't have an idea, when I started talking about it, he started flowing in the conversation. But then his phone rang. He got up and went out to pick the call, and his screen turned, and it was Google that was in front of him, and that's where he was speaking from. So if somebody of that magnitude, over 20 years in experience, could have opened Google at the first mention of something that he didn't understand or he didn't know, then why should I be ashamed to always open Google? So make Google your personal friend in this journey. Another experience that I'll share is that we had a meeting, a Teams meeting, and they were trying to assess the mood of the team. We had an agile delivery manager there talking to us, and he said, list some of the things your colleagues do that make you want to sack them. It was like an icebreaker or something, or that makes you want to terminate their contract. And somebody literally wrote, asking stupid questions when you could just Google it. Of course, these answers are anonymous, but you can see that that emotion is shared. So sometimes before you even ask, it's always very good to just Google it, have an idea, and then sometimes you see that the question you were about to ask, you don't even need to ask anymore. So make Google your personal friend. Slack, of course, we have a Slack channel. WirfonCloud has a Slack channel that you can visit and get information from. Udemy is like a major recommendation in WirfonCloud. Get all your courses from Stefan Marek, and then your practice from Tutorials Dojo here. And then YouTube also is very vital. You will realize that it serves you very much in your journey once you get in. Then obviously there's the AWS white papers, Edureka, which I mentioned earlier, and then there is recently a Plural site that I use for more focused courses that are not exam oriented. They are just about learning a particular tool and diving deep into the tool. So, but this list is inexhaustive. There are a lot of resources out there that you can leverage and you can make use of, and it's going to help smoothen your cloud journey even more. My application for jobs. Now, this is where we have to be a little bit more strategic. honest truth, certification alone will not give you a job. That's the honest truth. Certification alone will not give you a job. But you have to combine a certification with a strategic plan. And the way you go about your job search also matters a lot. For me, the first thing I did was I defined for myself the career path that I want. So what I decided was, okay, when I had a talk with banks, and I read other resources, I realized that AWS is not just like Cisco networking, that you just come and just, that's all you're doing. Within AWS, you have different roles that you can specialize in, and people are actually recruiting for different roles. So you can specialize as a solutions architect. Now, you may end up learning the same technology, but your approach to these technologies will be, to this learning will be different. So you can decide to train as a solutions architect. You can decide to train as a developer. You can decide to train as maybe just a sysadmin. Or you can even just want to have a career as an agile delivery person, maybe agile delivery project manager or analyst or whatever it is. But you require some basic knowledge of AWS because you're going to be working within AWS teams. You have to define what exactly you want to do with this AWS. Once you define that, it is easy for you to approach jobs in a way that is more beneficial to you. If not, you'll be running around in circles. So for me, I decided that I wanted to train as a solutions architect. Now, when I decided to train as an AWS solutions architect, I began to attend talks and seminars and stuff like that about how to go about becoming an AWS solutions architect. Michael Gibbs, which Barnes brought to us here on WirfonCloud, I attended his talks, a couple of them, and I realized that AWS solutions architect is not a role that you can get a junior for. What I mean is, it requires that you should have knowledge across board to be able to architect, to be able to recommend, to be able to read what the company's case is and recommend or proffer AWS solutions that fit that case, that requirement that the business or the organization or whatever it is you're trying to do is trying to attain, whatever it is they're trying to achieve. You must be able to, and this is where the pillars really matter a lot, because you have to strike a balance as a solutions architect. You have to strike a balance between security options, cost, compute, all those things. You have to be able to understand them enough to strike a balance. At some points, you are not necessarily as deep in the technicalities of it, but you have to be able to provide these solutions. And then, most importantly for solutions architects, you must be able to discuss this solution in a non-technical way to non-technical audience. Because most of the time, the reason why somebody is coming to you is because they are not knowledgeable about that and they consider you an expert. Meanwhile, a developer is a bit more technical, and a sysadmin is more about maintaining an already existing infrastructure, whether it's through other third-party tools or what, but it's maintaining that. So once you have an understanding of how you want to go about this, there are also AWS specialties. One of the things that I also thought about doing was leveraging my agricultural background in AWS, which means that I'll focus more on things like data analytics, big data at the time it was called, and machine learning specialties, so that I become not just a a solutions architect, but an AWS data solutions architect. You have to be able to understand what you want to achieve, and then that will help you in your role. So, but if you don't have this understanding, this deep understanding, you have to just be able to know what are the possible jobs that I can get when I do this certification. So when I do developer certification, what are the possible job roles that I can get? Ask yourself that question. When I do solutions architect associate, what are the possible job titles that I can hold? You find this information and you search for those job titles. When you search for these job titles, you go through them. And at least this is my process. You go through them, and then you will notice a trend. There will be some particular skills that are repeating themselves in all of this. Identify these skills that are repeating themselves. Some of them will be different. Some will not repeat themselves because organizations have their third-party niches that they can follow. However, look at the skills that are repeating themselves, and then you will know that there is no way you can become this thing you're asking for if you don't have this skill. One of the things that used to repeat themselves for me was Linux. Linux repeated itself a lot. And that was what informed me that there is no way I'm going forward in this journey if I don't at least get to a certain level with my Linux command line, mastering the Linux command line. Another thing that I saw a bit frequently was a scripting language. You know, another thing that I saw frequently was, you know, CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous delivery. So those kind of things, I began to look into them and to figure out what are these things, what are these things. Now, when you identify these skills, you have to try to gain these skills. You have to learn a bit, even if you are not learning them to master them, learn them enough to be able to not get lost in a conversation when these kind of skills are mentioned. So you cannot be talking with somebody and somebody says Ansible and you don't even know what Ansible is at all. It doesn't really speak a lot. So just arm yourself like that. Now, after having this knowledge and being able to do these things, prepare a CV that speaks to these roles. A CV that speaks to these roles. There are different approaches to preparing a CV. A lot of people have different approaches, you know, different formats, different templates that they can use. Whatever the case, let your CV be able to reflect these skills that have repeated themselves. You know, what I used to do is I go to LinkedIn, I look for these roles, I see the people who are on these roles, I go down to their skills, I see what they are prioritizing as their skills, I see the description of their roles. Somebody says he was a solutions architect, I go down to their role and I see how they have described what they were doing. And then I go to YouTube and figure out how to do those things. How to do those things. Somebody says he used IAC to provision resources on AWS. I go straight away and I start learning my Terraform, how to provision resources using Terraform. I at least practice it on my own, you know, and then start applying for these roles. Immediately you feel confident about your skills. Now, this is something that I did because I'm a very daring person. I'm a very ambitious person. However, sometimes it may be your certification that will give you that level of confidence. But once you feel confident, start applying for roles. Do not hold back. And then lastly, be daring. In the worst case scenario, they will say no. That's the worst thing that can happen when you apply for a job. No, or you don't receive a call. Nobody will come and say, how dare you at this level of, you know, how dare you come and apply for this, or come and arrest you because you applied for a role that is too big. Nobody will do that. So reach out, be daring, try as much as possible. As long as you have mastered those skills, apply for the roles. That's what I was saying. So my interviews, generally the tips that I'll give for interviews is be organized in your approach to job hunting, which means every time you apply for a role, download the job description and a copy of the CV you use for that particular role and the key skills that you need to learn. keep them in a different folder, so that every time somebody calls you, you don't have to get confused. You don't have to start speaking about things that are not relevant to that job. When you have it divided like this, when somebody calls you and mentions the company, you go to your file, you go to your computer, you pick that file, you already see the skills that you have listed there that are high priority. So when they say, tell me about yourself, you are playing around and throwing those words, those keywords around. If the job is big on Linux, you're throwing around the word Linux very much. You're throwing around package management very much. You're throwing around, you know, a lot of things that you know are going to be relevant to that job, because that's always how the first interview comes, at least in my experience. You know, study your CV, and if possible, do mock interviews with peers on YouTube, and on YouTube and other platforms you may be used to. And then Google keywords. When you see an interview where they are emphasizing certain words and you know nothing about it, Google it. What I used to do is when I have an interview, I usually send the interview sometimes to Barnes, and he will look at it and we'll talk about it. But sometimes Barnes may be busy, and this is the importance of networking. I send it to another person that I've identified, and they look at it and we talk about it, and we even do mock interviews. So study the CVs, the particular CV, so that you don't get surprised. You don't receive a call and they say, tell us about yourself, and you start saying something else, and then it happens that whoever is calling you knows your CV better than you. They'll be like, no, but you wrote that, you did this, you did that. So you have to be a bit organized, study the CV. Stay confident. Interviews are conversations to assess your suitability as a candidate, but also the suitability of the company as your new home. So always have that attitude when going for an interview, that it's not just them questioning you to see if they can hire you. It's you questioning them to see if they can afford you or they deserve you. Because if you don't think that if you're not confident enough to think that somebody has to deserve you, then you always sound in interviews like a beggar. And when you sound like a beggar, the temptation is that you probably don't know what you're talking about. When you sound like, you know, you're not very confident, you're void of confidence, then it's almost as if you don't know what you're talking about, you know, but you always have to sound confident. And lastly, treat every interview as a learning opportunity. The only way you can be able to do this successfully is if you remove the pressure from yourself. Because most of the time, we get caught up. We begin to pressure ourselves. In this journey, when you wake up some evening, you try 1, 2, 3 times, and it's not going. Pack up this thing and rest. You're not in competition with anybody. Just because you have seen updates in WirfonCloud doesn't mean you should kill yourself. You know, you're competing against you. All you're trying to do is add one skill or another, one form of knowledge to another, to yourself as the days go by. And what is your goal? To be better today than you were yesterday. You're competing with yourself. You're not competing with X or Y in there. If not, you will have unnecessary pressure. You will wake up in the morning with palpitations, and you begin to have challenges that will add to your challenge of employment. And you don't want that. You know, so you're competing with yourself. Everybody has their time frame. Everybody even has their own grace, because it's not necessarily the case that the same strategy that somebody used, you're going to use. But that strategy will inform you and will help when you're forming your own personal strategy as a person, you know, as an individual, how you're forming your own strategies, you're forming your own, creating your own path, you know. I know people who did cloud and their first interview, they got their first role. I didn't get my first role, my first interview. So I've listed my interviews that I went through, at least the key ones. There are some that called me and never really followed up, so I can't mention those ones. But immediately I got my cloud practitioner, and this is very important. Immediately I got my cloud practitioner, I started applying for roles. Cloud practitioner. The first role I applied for was a cloud analyst. It's not a technical role. It's just a business analyst role where the requirement gathering is for adoption of AWS. So cloud knowledge is important. And that was my understanding of it. And I applied for that role. It was with the company, what they were doing is they were starting that project. I guess the project never kicked off because after the interview, everything was confirmed. They said they're going to call me, but they never ever called me. They're going to call me to start up working integration issues, but they never called me. So I guess the project failed, or it didn't take off at the time. Another thing which was shared in WirfonCloud when I was learning was FinOps. It's a platform that helps you. It's a methodology, if you like, that teaches an approach to cloud computing that is cost effective. And I did learn a lot about FinOps as well. I didn't get to write the certification, but I took a lot of courses in FinOps. And so I started applying for FinOps analyst roles. After all, I was already in finance roles at the time, finance analyst roles. So what is analysis is input, processes, and output. And the output is based on your audience. So output for one can be an input for another. So FinOps requires that you have this methodology, but however, you should also have knowledge of the cloud, because if you want to tell people how to be cost effective, and for example, you are suggesting on-demand EC2 instances to them, or you are suggesting reserved EC2 instances to them, if they are going to use it just for one time and their load is critical, then maybe reserved is not for them. That kind of thing, you need that information to be able to give that kind of, to make those kind of analysis. And then, but that one, I didn't get the role. And then I applied for a couple of DevOps, junior DevOps engineer roles as well. Some of them never ever got back to me. They're on different job application platforms. Now, I didn't highlight job application platforms because based on your region in the world, the one that is more functional can be different. For example, where I am, Reeds is really a very good platform where I am. There's a lot of people who get jobs on. Glassdoor is not as popular here as it is in the US, for example. So all you need to do is Google job application platforms. You can get Indeed, you can get even LinkedIn, Reeds, Glassdoor, those things. Those are things that you can find yourself, so I'm not highlighting them. Now, I also got an interview as a DevOps lead. This interview was important because I was talking about strategizing so that you don't waste your previous experience. Now, being an agricultural development expert, this DevOps lead role was in the equivalence of the Ministry of Agriculture in the UK, right? So I was going to be leading the DevOps team for technologies that will use AWS resources, but their focus is to improve agriculture, right? And I was a perfect cultural fit for the organization. I had an understanding and a passion for what the ministry was doing. However, I didn't have the level of experience that was required to lead, right? But this is what happened. Because every other thing around me, like my background, my ability, my team spirit, my communications, my problem-solving skills, and all these kind of soft skills were so strong, this ministry recommended a junior role to me. The same DevOps, but a junior role. Unfortunately, that came when I had already had my senior infrastructure engineer role, so I turned it down. But that took time, but it came. So just because you did, there's an adage that says, shoot for the moon, you might land on the stars. And that's what happened there. you know. And then I interviewed for the senior infrastructure engineer role, and I got it. And it was a 3-interview stage job. The first interview was suitability screening, basically. Tell me about yourself, tell me about what you're doing right now, you know, those basic questions. Tell me about your technologies that you've learned. It was a conversation about cloud generally. And the person who was interviewing me also was very open-minded. We spoke like colleagues more like, and he was impressed. But it was established in this first meeting that I had knowledge gaps. It was established because, and a lot of the skills that were listed, majority of those skills that were listed were not general infrastructure engineer skills. They were more like skills that were specific to the organization. So as long as I had those skills that were general to an infrastructure engineer, and I had the soft skills, they've sent me to the next stage. Now, the next stage was a scenario-based interview. So they gave us a job, basically, to go and architect this particular solution. And then they gave us 48 hours to architect that solution and come and present it. So immediately you receive the email, the clock starts ticking for 48 hours. And then I walked through it, and I did the presentation, and I got through that one. And then now I had the final interview, which was the regular interview that you know, key proficiency-based interviews, things like testing your problem-solving skills. Tell me about the time when you had to influence your team to change course. Tell me about the time when, those kind of interviews. And of course, that's my strength. So where I am in my life has been through interviews, and those are the kind of nature of interviews. From one scholarship to the other, from one job to the other. That was not a problem for me. I trashed that, and by the grace of God, I was given that opportunity. So emphasis here is do not underestimate your soft skills. You know, approach to learning. In fact, let me just say this, which maybe it's a bit too much, but I'll just say it. My offer letter started in the most extraordinary way. My offer letter started with the words, I and my colleague both agree that you have knowledge gaps in, and they listed the skills where I had knowledge gaps in. Once I read that first part, it was enough to tell me that I had been rejected. But what they said after that was, however, given your approach to learning, how did they know my approach to learning? Through our conversations, through my communications, through my answers to the questions. You know, when they asked me questions that I didn't know, now this is a tip that I want to give. When you don't know an answer, or generally, whenever you're about to pose a problem in this kind of process, it is not the problem that we are after, it is the solution. So every time, I'll give an example. What are the problems you will face if you want to go and study in Canada? If you say the weather is cold, note that the problem is we're not interested in whether the weather is cold. We're interested in your solution. So you say something like, the weather is cold, that's going to be a big challenge. However, I'm going to read up on dressing patterns that are suitable for winter. Now you have addressed the problem. You have said no, but you have said no and given a solution. So rather than just say no and leave it there, say no and then give us your approach to how you're going to learn that skill if you are given the opportunity. You're going to Google it, you're going to do this, you're going to go to Reddit, you're going to this, that is very important. And yeah, that was my process. We're towards the end now. My current job, the job summary, basically what I'm doing is my role consists of designing, building, and maintaining complex hybrid, that's on-prem and multi-cloud infrastructure estate, ensuring they're highly available, reliable, cost-efficient, and secure using latest cloud tools. And then these are the tools that I use every day. I use AWS, I use CSC for DNS management, I use Acquire for SSL certifications updates, and things like that. I use ServiceNow for ticketing. I use Prometheus and Grafana for dashboarding, Prometheus for monitoring. We're moving from Dynatrace to Datadog now. So that's going to be my first experience of an AWS migration project. Dynatrace is going to be maintained anyway at some part for the on-prem data centers. So it gives me an opportunity to learn a lot because there's a lot of experts involved in the work. Yes, the job is fully remote, so I work from home. Occasionally, we have social events that require in-person meetings, but they are not obligatory. It's 35 hours a week. And when it comes to pay, it's sufficient to say that it's about twice the average UK salary, whatever source you're using. And negotiations. So I was able to negotiate a term in my contract that says 20% of my job will be spent on personal development. So at least 1 day a week, all I have to do is learn. And all my further learning and certifications and resources are covered by the company. So that's my cloud journey. I've taken you from the stage of frustration to the stage of fulfillment. And if you ask me for any advice, I have one thing to say: hustle. That's my that's my advice. Yeah, but really, my advice is don't give up. It's not going to be smooth, because if it is smooth, then you're probably doing it wrong. However, every time you achieve one little step, it's going to be a motivation for you to go to the next step. And just like that, and just like that. I don't want to talk too much about advice because I have been giving advice as we have been speaking. So that's it from me.
Yeah, great. Please let's give a hand of applause. I know everyone is muted, but just feel free to come up and let's say congratulations to Cham.
Congratulations.
Thanks,
man.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. So a big thank you to Cham for coming back to the community to share this inspiring story. I'm very sure that many of you will have questions. So we've already had about 1 hour, and I'm happy Cham did cover advice on possibilities of what you should be doing. If you still want to watch this, we'll share the recording on our YouTube channel. And I think if you watch it a couple of times, it will help you more. But so just have your questions ready. Let me just try to answer some questions that I noticed that were shared. Someone was asking about the Slack workspace. So we will take, we'll try to share that link to our Slack page. Unfortunately, there's a new development for Slack. We are using the free version. Currently, Slack, say the requirement is that messages that are older than 90 days will be deleted. So we're going to rethink on how to continue using Slack. So most of the rich information we had there, I think from the 1st of, I don't know, I think 1st of October or 1st of November, they will not be available. So if you know that there is some messages that were there you need to save, I'll recommend you do so. And then I will also communicate on how we will try to improve that space. Maybe we'll need to go for a premium a premium version, which will require come with cost, but we'll have to think about that. Someone was asking if they can do Scrum without knowledge in practitioner or can do all at once. Yes, definitely, if you have the time. But as I keep advising, it's really good to start with one thing if you are completely new. That is my recommendation. But if you have that time and you're capable and you are sure, yeah, why not? Okay, do, but know that cloud is direction. Cloud computing, you may be doing Scrum just to test the waters to see what is all about Scrum. So if you are combining that, make sure that you don't get overloaded. And I think from Cham very well, right? So it's good to, in this cloud journey, it's good to make it a step at a time. For beginners in Cameroon, I still haven't understand a lot, but see positive about it. One thing, if you did hear very well about Cham, every Saturday is always dedicated to talking to the community, right? Trying to drive you to give orientation on which cloud, on which career path you can take, trying to answer questions if you are struggling during the sessions on that we're having within the week. So Saturday sessions like today are dedicated to bring inspiring stories like this, and then to also orientate. My recommendation, many people always miss these Saturday sessions, but you hear from Cham very well, it was joining the Saturday session that actually inspired him and gave him reason to push more. If you are here and you are not in the main WirfonCloud Telegram group and you want to join, I highly recommend, right? There are always postings there, be it success story, Cham mentioned it as well, that can be the reason that will give you that extra push in case you are losing steam. So those are the answers I have. I noticed someone had a question, that is Vero, asking how long did it take for your journey? I don't know if Cham, you want to answer that. And then if there are hands up, please just pick them up. Lady N and Lady T, we pick the hands up and you can come on and speak. So yeah, Cham, you want to answer that question? How long did it take for you to complete your journey?
So in all honesty, it took like about a year, to be honest. You know, from, because I joined WirfonCloud, the community, the learning community, last year, I think around May. Bandika, if that's right, around May or June. Yeah, around April or May, I think. Yeah. However, I've been exploring my IT options way longer than that. You know, so for example, my project management and business analysis, agile business analysis course was done in 2019. In 2020, I did the Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations course. In fact, right before I started my cloud journey, I registered for ACCA, accounting qualification. And that was at the point of, you know, I was like, well, if all of these other IT things are not working, maybe it's a sign that I should go back to my accounting. First of all, by this time, I would have cleared at most 4 of the remaining 10 courses. And my starting salary would have been not up to half of what I'm earning now. Even if I was chartered today, I don't know any chartered accountant who starts at the salary that I am on now. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's basically, yeah.
Yeah. So I here started almost a year ago after joining, a year and a half. You've come this far. So what I always say, right? The cloud computing is one of the easiest place to have a job and a good salary, but it's not a walk in the park, right? It's not a walk in the park. You cannot just start thinking that you just do the certifications after 1 year, 2 years, you have it. For those who did miss Shay Timothy's presentation last Saturday, I still recommend that you watch that video. Apart from with WirfonCloud will definitely help you get started, will definitely help you get oriented, but then you have to also dig deeper, right? Look around, just as you've heard from Cham today. I don't know, until at the end, is there anyone who have a question? Please feel you can come also to the mic and speak. Don't be shy.
Shy?
I mean, any other person who has a question. I don't know if you're
Okay. Good evening, everybody. And Cham, thank you for this very inspiring story. You know, stories like this is what motivate most people, most of us to get serious. And maybe for those who are just joining for the first time, I think it's just they may be frightened because you had a lot of other certifications, but we're hearing it from you. It gives people the spirit to push on, and the advices that you gave along. I mean, like how to prepare your CV, how to keep them, you know, all those, you know, that so that when you're called back, you don't start mixing up. I mean, all those little hints and tips are very much, I really appreciate. And I want to say congratulations. This is our community. Let's keep building it. And for those who are just joining newly, WirfonCloud is just a wonderful platform for you to choose, to choose and build your career. You have all the support. There are more than 30 or 40 people here willing to always support you anytime you call on them. And the Scrum Master, the Scrum Challenge is just taking it another level. So I'm just really proud being a member of this community, and just to encourage all the newcomers to say, this is a place to be. You are here, this is just the beginning. You will hear more stories that will make you want to think that you can cover it in 1 week. But it takes time, it takes work, it takes determination, and you will feel discouraged. And for those who hear that the classes start at 5:30 in the morning, you may be like 5:30, especially those in the UK or in Cameroon, waking up at 4:30 sometimes. It's not easy. That, you know, when you start the whole thing, it kicks up. The first few days may be difficult, but once you are in it, sometimes if you don't wake up, you will even start feeling guilty.
Absolutely.
But, Cham, thank you again once more. I hope more inspiring stories will come up.
Yeah, thank you. Hello.
Yeah.
Cham, it's a wonderful presentation from you there.
Oh.
That's really a presentation from a champion. Yeah, it's so inspiring, and what you've presented so far is not just for cloud guys who are interested in cloud, or I think it applies to all walks of life in terms of the approach, in terms of everything. And your journey is so inspiring and at the same time frightful, you know. So but not frightful in the sense that you've achieved so much. You've attained higher heights, different levels, but still you still want more. You kind of had to you know, your taste for glory, for what you want is limitless. However, you've said so many things, so many important things. One of them is that certification is not all that is required, and that is true. Not only in cloud, but in many ways. But you've highlighted that something like experience, okay, is what they are looking at. That conversation that they had with you, they're trying to see your experiences. And what made you to go through smoothly from your presentations is those experience, those leadership positions, how you solve problems. Because about problem solving. That made you to just go have what you had. Now, what about someone who doesn't have any experience at all. And then he's had all the certification, he's done all the hard work, but he doesn't know how, or he doesn't have that experience. How do they go about it? Maybe this can go to Banjika also, or to the WirFon. Is there something we're going to do in order to address that? People thought, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know Barnes has something to say about that, about the project that is running in the background, but I just want to say from another answer from another perspective. You see, there's something I usually do every year where I identify like 5 different people who are interested in achieving a scholarship, and I try to mentor them through the process, and they get it. One of the biggest questions I hear is, I don't have experience, you know, and it spurs the question, what is experience to you? If you limit experience to having the badge of a big company on your CV, then you get it wrong. Experience is simply, have you done this before? In that sense, the AWS learning process is a do-it process. It's a do-it process. Secondly, well, I may have had a little advantage because in senior roles, they require the technical abilities, but they also require a huge chunk of people management, and which is something that I had a lot. But one thing that happens is, if you have done it yourself, if you have done the labs over and over again, if you have looked at those key skills, for example, Linux, and you have gone to Google and said key Linux commands for DevOps, and you have looked at those skills, and you have played around, you have opened Ansible playbooks, and you have played around Ansible. You have gone to Jenkins and you have played around the pipelines. You know, you have done these things. This is experience you're gathering, right? And especially for interviews that require a practical aspect, this, as long as you get, and this is also something that worked well for me, because I did the practicals, what they required on the architecting of the scenario, which I might share, maybe even if not today, but maybe one day I'll just take that question and see how we can architect it together as learners, because I consider myself a learner as well. But all these little things add up to what you would call experience. So when they asked, for how long have you been doing AWS, my answer is, without even twisting my face, is 1 year, because I've actually been playing around with these labs for 1 year. And if I say that I can provision AWS resources, VPCs, EC2 instances, internet gateways using infrastructure as code, maybe Terraform or CDK, I'm not lying. Give me the scenario, and I'll actually provision these resources for you, you know. So these labs are actually experiences you're gathering, and when every time you Google these things, try them out so that even if you're tempted to exaggerate, I don't want to say lie, exaggerate on your CV, it should be an exaggeration that you can defend. You understand? So that's going to be my answer. But I also know that there's something which is running now which we did not have in WirFon, and that's the beauty about it. The fact that it is growth oriented. We didn't have projects at the time when we're learning. When I just joined, we didn't have projects, but I know that there are projects running now. There's a group for serverless. There is this, there is that. So maybe Barnes now will talk about that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Answer is spot on, but before I answer, let me just read this comment from Samson. Samson, again, is a resource leader. I forgot the name of your group in in Nairobi, helping Kenya, helping a lot of people to start also in the cloud. But he himself is a very motivated learner. If you watch his LinkedIn profile, he keeps posting what he has learned. And that just shows the commitment. And I'm very sure not long from now, he will definitely be one of the leaders in the cloud. I saw your nomination. I'm really looking forward that you get that among those in the cloud in that category. But he says, thank you, Cham, for such an amazing sharing. I have been inspired in all angles as a learner, a cloud enthusiast, and a community leader. My greatest takeaway, never give up. If it is easy, you are probably doing it wrong, right? So if you are just sleeping and thinking that this is an easy journey, you are wrong. But again, I would say it's the easiest, because listen to Cham, even if he was a certified chartered accountant, he won't be making the salary that he has had after putting serious energy for 1 year. Timothy, who is with us, he joined, he took 2 years, and he's also in a very good position, earning a 6-figure salary in the US, so but it shows dedication. So to answer to that question, and that's why Cham said the community is constantly growing. When we started, it was more of certifications, right? The group was small. Remember that we are doing all of this and doing our normal daily jobs, right? So this is just kind of a part-time thing that we do to inspire our own communities. I will guarantee you that when you see where Indians are today, it's not because they are more intelligent than us. They have huge communities like this that help young people who are struggling to break through and don't make mistakes. If you look at what Cham went through, all those different study places he went through, I'm sure if he had joined WirfonCloud earlier, or if we had this community bigger earlier on, he wouldn't have had to learn so many different things. So the reason for this community is to ensure that people don't make mistakes, all right? Go reinvent the wheel, but to be more focused and quickly ascend into the ladder. So that's why we have now introduced WirfonCloud Labs. So the 3 steps to position yourself in your cloud journey to have a job. Certification is key, right? Don't just say, even if you study anything, you have to have a minimum level of solutions architect associate after doing the practitioner. And then you have to start, you should then take hands-on very serious. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, Teofilo is here, has been doing a very excellent job. Those labs are building on. The recordings will be shared by the end of tomorrow. So the thing that is, if you don't have the experience in working in the cloud, as you heard Cham say, be practicing. There is one lady who works at AWS. She's a solutions architect at AWS, and she also didn't have a background in cloud, but she stated clearly that the way she was able to hack into getting to AWS, each time she did any lab or any scenario based, there are some AWS workshop labs that go for about 3 hours. Each time she completed it and she was very confident, she added that in a CV as a project she had done, right? So after you do a lab that is 3 hours, 6 hours, it involves so many different services. And if you are confident about it, write every steps, summarize that, put it in your CV and call it an experience, because as rightly said, this is an experience. Cloud is still very young, and it's not been here for a long time. And the problem is companies need people with cloud. So this is the best time to get in, because if you have all of that and you state that, okay, I've done, you don't write that you have completed this lab. You actually write that this is an experience, a project I've completed. And as Cham said, if you can defend it, then you are not exaggerating. You are just speaking. It's an experience you have had. So at WirfonCloud, we recommend that apart from doing your classes, make sure that you attend the Tuesdays and Thursday sessions to build those hands-on skills, to see the different lab scenarios that we have. And after you have had at least the Solutions Architect Associate skill certification, you then attend the projects that we have introduced. The first pioneer group, as is just finishing after about 3 months working on different projects. Because if you have these hands-on, you also included that you have done this project. As Cham said, start daring. I listened, I'm so really much moved by the way you explain it. So you figure out a role, you go to LinkedIn, you see the things that are common, and you start filling those gaps. Then create a CV that reflects that role, and you start applying. even if you have just had a practitioner, because the beauty about going for interviews is that you start building, you start learning. I'm just repeating the things, Cham. So you start learning, and then maybe if the job you are supposed to have was going to be the fit application, then by the time you have that interview, you will have learned and you will just be ready for it. So we keep saying about having a good LinkedIn profile. We keep repeating this in the community about go for jobs. Don't be ashamed if you go and fail. There's nothing wrong in it. So for those of you who think you don't have experience, start building it through the hands-on labs. Start if you are once we launch the next set of projects, and you have the solutions architect associate, because we don't also want it takes time, right? So don't try to crowd yourself. People take a year, people take 2 years. So don't just try to do everything once. It won't be effective, right? So I hope I covered that question, Napoleon, and I hope every other person did get something.
Yeah, thank you, Cham, for the highlights.
Yeah, you're welcome. Nathaniel, you're asking about the course outline. Please just join the Telegram group. Most of those things about course outline, what we're doing, will be communicated always in the groups that reflect it, so that we don't repeat that for the entire group now. So that was a question on the forum. And then I see Shay Timothy is congratulating Cham again, one of our success stories in the forum. Yeah, so we also have Aqua FM by here. He's also another success story. He came join the group he has a huge background in networking, IT, and he also joined this group and now is a cloud architect in the UK. Same as Pride, is also a cloud architect in the UK. As time goes along, we'll listen to them. But my recommendation for the new people who are having so many questions and are a bit worried, please, next Saturday, we'll just dedicate it again to just orientating the new members. We have our community lead here, Lady T, who also supports and to drive onboarding people, talking about the community. So if you have questions about how we work, don't miss next Saturday. And then after that, we'll listen to another inspiring story. We're already 15 minutes past the time. I know we started a bit late, so we may push this for another 15 minutes. If you still have questions, if you still have comments to share, it's not always easy to put this together. And Cham is here, have that opportunity to have a conversation with him. So this is still open. Lady N, you may come in. I know Cham did miss on you and you wanted to come in. So you may come in, and then any other person, please just indicate and come in. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I just found it so funny. I didn't know that I was disturbing Cham in that presentation I had, and you joined. But I'm happy to be of help or to be some sort of inspiration. And sincerely, from your presentation, as Lady T said, with the presentations going on with WirfonCloud, if you listen to it, you think you do cloud computing in 1 week. I mean, yours was top on. Thank you so much. It just shows a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, the willingness to learn, determination, commitment. I mean, just all those certificates. Let's leave the certificates apart. The other ones that you learn, Terraform, DevOps, and the fact that in your contract, you still push that you want 20% of your time to be learning is just top on. And I'm really, really so happy to hear. And big congratulations. Wishing you more wins in your cloud journey.
Thank you.
And I definitely like what you said. I mean, at the end, if it's easy, then it means you're doing it the wrong way. That's also something I'm thinking.
Thank you so much, you. See you in Leicester. Yeah, that's the conference.
Right. Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. No, excellent. And for those, that's Lady N, who is going to be with WirfonCloud team lead. I think if some of you are worried again, she's an AWS restart instructor already. So if you are thinking, oh, you are slowing down, maybe Lady Ed is challenging you again to keep going. Aqua, please go ahead. I see you have your hand up. Yeah. And then after that, Titus. Right. Go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. And Cham, well done and congratulations to you again. I think one thing I want to say is that I met Cham for the very first time at the AWS reInvent in London. I think this was the first session from after the post-COVID. So I think at the time when we're looking for WirFon members who are going to be present at the AWS reInvent in 2022, I caught up with Cham at the event. And I just wanted to say, I think after that event, that's when the good news befell both of us anyway. He got his job and I got my job as well. So I think one thing I'd want to say, so, really endorsing and really congratulating Cham on his success is to say that the AWS forum, the reInvent, if anybody has the opportunity to go, it's really a great place to really get the vibe and the energy of what's really happening in the cloud computing. So sometimes we may not be really aware of what the potential is, but when you go around, you look at some of these companies, you see what some of these companies are trying to do. That in itself can be highly motivating, and you don't know, you could even find a future employer at that place. So by all means, all the tools which Cham released here, I think are absolutely wonderful. Do that, and use everything else in your repertoire. I think the most important thing, but most important takeaway which I got from what Cham said today was really the aspect of networking, talking to people, because that in the end, really, you can go far enough with certifications, but I think building that rapport with people is what in the end takes us to greater heights. So well done, congratulations, Cham, once again, and thank you for.
Thank you so much, Ako. It was really a pleasure meeting you. And now that you mentioned, I just remember we walked past my current employer's stand at the London Summit. If you remember, we walked past that stand and we had a brief stop on it, and we went to the Oxford University stand as well. We had a brief stop, and a couple of months later, it so happened that those were the people who employed me as well. So if you have an opportunity and AWS Summit comes to your city, just go. It gives you a better understanding of those who are actively using AWS and potential recruiters as well.
Excellent, great, Cham. I will share, please do rate this session for today. I'm sharing a link on our forum. It's a Google form. It will take you about 2 minutes highest to complete. So please do complete this. It's feedback that is important for us to know how to handle the session. We'll compare that with the feedback we had for Shay Timothy. Right. Yeah, so thanks again for that comment. Now, Titus, you want to come in? Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the floor. Mr. Cham, I'm so glad to have the motivations, the encouragement, especially for those of us who are so motivated as well to study. So I am so happy that the Saturday session is the reason why I go to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, because actually I know that is the spirit behind. So in fact, I'm so proud if I can get anything for my 3 years being in Europe. I think if I'm going back home, I think I should be proud of that. I can hold my keyboard, I could do something with the keyboard based on WirfonCloud. So I'm so happy and so resourceful you are, and I believe you will not abandon WirfonCloud. We always need you to come in and give us some input to make us WirfonCloud grow higher. As a Linux student that I'm doing my Linux course, I will also always like to meet you by the background for some analysis, for some help, or maybe some guide, some advice on how I can go with the course, please come and share with all, because bring back the knowledge back to the community. We need the knowledge, but we don't need the money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Titus. Don't make the mistake. We are all learners. As you know, there is really no, well, there are people who are comfortable with technologies, but there is really no expert, because these things come up every now and then. But that said, I'm not even comfortable with any technology I mentioned yet. I'm still a learner. We have a WirfonCloud Pro, so for people who are actively working in AWS, and I'm one of the people who shoot a lot of questions in there as well. When I have tasks at work that are challenging. So again, that's just what I'm doing with giving you these insights that seem as though I'm exposing the imbalance or the weaknesses of the system above. It's just to make you understand that it's just to demystify it. You know, it's not magic that is going on when you get a job. It's still the same challenges that you have when you sign on to your personal account. You know, it's still those same challenges of navigating those pages and looking for this or looking for that, or getting in or signing in or whatever challenges that you face. It's still those challenges that you meet on a daily basis. So whatever it is you're doing on your personal account, know that that's what you're going to be seeing, except some technologies may add based on your organization and what they are doing, what they are trying to achieve. So we are learners, we all. So when you come to me for Linux commands, if I don't know when you find it, make sure that you come to me as well with the answer so that I learn from it.
Absolutely. That is the reason for WirfonCloud, right? We have that opportunity to exchange and keep learning. As Riley said, there's really no expert cloud. It's a constant changing field. You wake up today, the breakthrough technology becomes the old one, and something new has taken over. So continuous learning is key. Theophile, come in, please. Theophile, again, is WirfonCloud Labs lead. So I'm happy to hear I'm looking forward to hear your comment or maybe your question. Go ahead, Theo.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ban. And big thanks to you, Cham. This is why this group was created, so that when people go forward, they can hold the hands of those who are still behind, and be able to expand the number of people in our community that are able to contribute or bring change to the society. So I'm most pleased that today, when you came to tell your story, I just counted over 12 people joined the practitioner challenge today. So I hope that your story has really inspired them. But something I saw from, I heard about your case. I mean, there are so many things I heard, and which I really appreciate that you took the time to tell us, despite the time difference issue that happened for you, but you still gave us an elaborate description of your experience. But you mentioned that you did this in 1 year, like you took 1 year from start to getting your job, and I hope that you can also emphasize to those who are joining WirfonCloud today, that even though you took 1 year, it was not 1 year of just reading. As you also said, you have to do a lot of work by yourself. This is not 1 year of answering and answering questions on certification papers, all of these things. It takes more than just that. I'm getting echo. So I believe that maybe the 1 year might seem impossible or like flashy for those who are joining today, but I believe that it's really possible with the current, not just possible when as to when you join WirfonCloud, but even more possible today with the support that we have from our friends here in WirfonCloud. Now that you've come, you told us the story, the inspiration and motivation is one thing that all of us need to continue working hard. But even more, the support that we have from our everyone that maybe have gotten the certification and gotten the job is the more reason why people should even believe that in less than 1 year they can achieve the same goal. I think that maybe you agree with me on this, that that the WirfonCloud is giving much more support today than it gave to you a year ago, right?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Theophile. It's a very valid point you're making. It may have been 1 year if you're counting days and months, but it felt like 10 years. I gave you a glimpse of my emotional state at the time. You know, I was utterly dissatisfied with myself. I basically didn't have a life. It was a painful period for me. It was a period where a lot of people who were concerned, a lot of loved ones were concerned about why I am withdrawing away from the community, And funny enough, withdrawal is one of the signs, the early signs of depression and anxiety and self-harm. And so people were scared that maybe this guy is losing his mind. But it was because I was very... And one of the things that also made me very, very annoyed with myself is that at the time, in March last year, I was having a hard time with my current employer at the time as well. I was having a real hard time. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things that was really pushing me was I have 2 master's degrees. And then I had somebody who was my boss who basically didn't go to college. She just finished and did AAT. And because she speaks the Queen's language and she's, fluent and all that, she was really giving me a hard time. And I said to myself, no, I have to work. I have to put in more effort. And that's the kind of energy I got into WirfonCloud with. And I battled my way. So you're very correct. It is an endless learning journey. Sometimes, and this is where I'm very bad at taking advice. One of the advice that I did not take, but I crave your indulgence to take, is to not overwhelm your brain with different things, trying to learn everything at the same time. Don't try to learn everything. That's what I try to do. And that's why maybe I feel very overwhelmed. I felt very overwhelmed. Don't try to do that. Don't try to overwhelm yourself with a lot of things. But also, if you are strategic, and this is the role of WirfonCloud, to make the journey easier for you than it was for me or for the people who joined yesterday. Like Theophile said, we didn't have a lab session when I joined. You have it now. So maybe your frequent visits to YouTube may even be reduced because you're actually doing it within the community. Another thing which was mentioned was the courses that I did were not necessarily relevant at the end. I'll give you an example. 3 weeks after I completed my Terraform course, I got my job. And then in my company, Terraform is called a legacy system. Legacy means that an old system that is being retired. I'm like, I just learned this thing. How can it be considered an old system? You see, so it is relative. And the infrastructure as code that they focus on is CDK. And I'm like, this is Terraform, which some people are still even planning to learn. Some companies are even still planning to adopt today. And in another company, it's being considered a legacy system. So it's not just about hearing these names and running after these things. It's to strategize, think about it, think about the relevance of the technology in your journey. If you figure out your vision, your path well, then the process will be easier. If you figure out what exactly, maybe if you don't know what you want to do, start with what you don't want to do. I'll tell you what I did not want to do. The first thing I knew I don't want to get into is core software development, like core coding. I did not want to get into it. I can deal with scripting because the language of scripting is a bit more readable. When you read it, even if you don't really have a lot of knowledge, you can at least start understanding what this is trying to do, what it's trying to get. Plus, there are suggestions for scripts. If you want to put a string or you want to put something like that, as you're typing it in your VS Code, it's suggesting to you. And if you know what you're trying to achieve, it's easier for you. So if you don't know, if you don't have a vision crafted, start with the things that you know you don't want to do. And sometimes you might be wrong as well, because you might think that you cannot do something. I didn't say start with the things you think you cannot do. I said you don't want to do, because sometimes you can do things, but you still don't want to do them. Sometimes you want to do things, but you cannot do them. And that's when work and hard work comes into play in order to be able to reverse that. So building that vision is really a key aspect of your journey. Trying to imagine yourself. The question Barnes asked me was, so what do you want to, it was almost like he was saying, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And so I had to think about where I see myself in 5 years, and then figure out how do I get there.
Great. Good. Good. Thanks again for that emphasis. I really hope people capture this, right? Know where you want to go to. It is very important. If not, you will go into circles. Take time and reflect really which path you are going to follow. If you don't know at all, do the practitioner. But as you are doing it, ask yourself, be asking questions, be coming on the sessions, talk to those who are already on the field. We have now enough architects here. They will be willing to share what they are actually doing. Hopefully, I'm sure Shay Timothy is also in his experience. He did a boot camp for the DevOps. He may be able to tell you what that was all about. So ask these questions and try to position yourself. Make sure you are using online sessions. We had Mike Gibbs. I think many people here know Mike Gibbs. If maybe we'll find time again for him to come talk to the community. But LinkedIn remains a great place for resource. So once you have that vision and direction, you will go places. So WirfonCloud will help you to get started. But that final push, you have to personally invest in it, right? It's definitely not enough. We are really way out of time. It's been a great evening, but I just want to answer this question from Desmond. As a beginner, please, how long could one aim to already to finish with this AWS? What I will say is the target for the feedback, if you are doing 2 times a week, if you just follow our process, by the end of December, you can definitely have the AWS practitioner course. We take it slowly, give you enough time. So 2 times a week, then you have enough time to read that material, give assignments that you can look into. For every session, there will be questions and answers at the end to drill you. And then we'll then have revision for about 3 to 4 weeks. And then this time around, we'll try to ensure that once we finish that revision, you should be able to go and take your exam. So the target is by the end of this year. If you join the feedback, you will be certified. I see someone asking about the link. Thanks, Lady N. So follow the Telegram group and be part of that, of the feedback certification. And all these, the practitioner will be taught at least by people who have the solutions architect associate certification or higher. And then, yeah, we'll have lab sessions on Fridays, basic labs, so absolute beginners. The other point that you've heard from Cham is please don't overwhelm yourself. You may want to learn those things because you are desperate. You want to have that job also immediately, but understand your pace, right? Understand what you can be able to take at a time. And that's why I keep saying that I'm not in a position to tell anyone that don't do practitioner and don't do, let's say, Terraform at the same time, right? I can recommend Terraform at least after the practitioner because you need to understand what some of the things are before you go into provisioning them. So, but if you just take, let's say you finish a practitioner, and then you can also maybe think of doing the solutions architect associate, that builds very strong knowledge, which from that end now, you may decide, okay, are you going to go to DevOps? You know, for some people, they recommend that after the practitioner, you may go to the developer role. If you are in the field of IT and you already have a background in programming and all those things are not new to you, you can easily go to the developer role. If you want to just more deals with deep hands-on like a cloud engineer, you can then do the sysops role. And from there, you can then start thinking, oh, can I move more as an architect, or should I go to the DevOps professional role? There are some other specialty certifications. If you have a good background in databases, you've been working with databases, after the practitioner and maybe doing the solutions architect, as you said, you can then decide to do the database specialty course, right? Because you already know what databases are. Or if you are confident enough after the practitioner, those are things that you can maybe make those decisions if you have an IT background and you are confident. But if you don't, take the practitioner, I will recommend the solutions architect associate, and then make sure you have answers on where you want to go and then build on that. Yeah, that is the key thing I will share. And I think this will be final for the evening. I don't know if I think, let me see, Cham, maybe just give one last closing comment, and then we'll close this session.
All right. I don't know. I'm not closing. I'm not. In fact, my journey with WirfonCloud is just beginning. Because I like I said earlier, we all are learners, and I'm currently studying for my pro, and we already have people who hold that certification here on WirfonCloud as well. So I'm still learning. I'm still also in the WirfonCloud Pro group, which is for people who are actually working in the cloud, and which means that which lets you, especially you who has just joined, understand that it's not just come, get a certification and leave. You see that WirfonCloud remains relevant even after you've gotten your job. There are certain challenges that you're going to face. You throw them in there. People will share their experiences from different products that they are working on, or different solutions they are working on, and you can benefit from it. So to close, especially to those who are just joining, all I can tell you is it's a journey that is very possible. If you take your time, if you put in the work, it's going to pay off. Sometimes like I said earlier, when I sit sometimes and I'm feeling discouraged, I read through the group and I see I just passed. Sometimes I go to LinkedIn or to Glassdoor or to Indeed and just check average AWS role salaries. When I see the salaries, I say I can afford to avoid sleep for 1, 2, 3, 4 days because of this salary. Because I'm doing it anyway. I'm waking up and stressing myself going to work in the morning. So I'm doing that. And then there was something I just wanted to mention about Scrum. The higher you go, the more it's about people management, but not just traditional people management, agile delivery of projects. And right now, the ticketing system that I use is Jira Kanban boards. If we had Scrum or Kanban at the time when I was learning, I would have been probably better prepared. But as you can see, there is the Scrum program running right now, which gives you that advantage to be able to learn this agile methodology, to be able to understand how to deliver solutions with the agile mindset, which is also very helpful. So if you have done your practitioner, your solutions architect, I'll advise that you do the agile, because the Scrum, because it's something which I also have planned along the line, depending on how like I said earlier, right now, my learning, unless I'm trying to skip lines, but these are things that can be paid for by my company. So I'll just take my time, finish with one, get the next one, finish with it. That way, I don't have more than 2 items pending to be sponsored. It would almost be like I'm overly ambitious. But yeah, the Scrum methodology is something that you might need when you're growing, when you're getting into that level of leadership in whatever company that you find yourself. So yeah, thank you very much for the platform. Thank you for taking out your time to listen to me. You would have been doing something way better with your time now, but you decided to listen to my boring voice for over an hour. I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much.
Cham, you're a very excellent communicator. There's no doubt about that. So it was not boring, and we've been very happy to have you today. Thanks for all that you have shared. It's going to help and inspire others. So let's continue the conversation. Let's keep the community growing. And I think at this point, I will wish everyone a very great weekend. We'll be back on Monday. I see someone is asking when classes are starting. If you are in the main forum, we'll share that details again, and then make sure you join the Cloud Practitioner group because we have all that information. But the classes will be at 5:30 a.m. Berlin time, CEST, which is about 4:30 in London. And then in Cameroon, it's also 4:30. But when we have first, I think it's from in October, there will be times change, and the time will adjust at least to be more favorable also for those in Cameroon and also down in sub-Saharan Africa. So the time again is 5:30 a.m. CEST. And in the practitioner group, we'll give more updates on that. But see you on Monday for complete beginners. And for those doing the Solutions Architect Associate, we'll be meeting on Wednesday and Thursday. So have a great week, people, and keep rolling the cloud. We have to do it. We can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.